Women who are in violent industries have to prove themselves more than men. There is a tendency for women to be more violent than men.
You probably know Netflix's Queen of the South, brave and ruthless Teresa Mendoza, who will stop at nothing to gain the upper hand on the Mexican cartel. But what if I told you this character is based on a real female narco from Guatemala, Marllory Chacon Rossell?
She was part of this web that went right to the top of Guatemala's political as well as criminal elite. She was absolutely right in the eye of the storm.
That's right. It's slowly becoming clear just how big of a part women play in the Central and South American narcotics trade. Forget about Pablo Escobar and El Chapo. Las Patronas are taking the world by storm. Marllory Chacon was sentenced to 26 years in prison. 5 years later, she walked free. How did she do this? Let's explore this and many other questions surrounding the real Queen of the South. Marllory Chacon Rossell was born in Guatemala City, the capital of Guatemala, on October 4th, 1972. The first thing that became clear about Marllory was she was very smart.
I spoke to a former DEA agent and he said that had Marjorie been in the legal world, she could have reached CEO position in some big company, that she was very astute and had very high-end skills, and it just so happens that she decided to apply those in the trade instead.
Indeed. Marllory was never interested in the legal world. It's unclear whether her family had any ties to the Guatemalan cartels or whether she chose this path on her own. But Marllory was pretty young when she decided she was going to make the big bucks in the criminal underworld. After finishing high school, she enrolled in a university to study psychology. But after a few years, she dropped out and pursued the narcotics trade instead. She soon became one of Guatemala's top money launderers. Then, she became one of Central America's top money launderers. According to the DEA, she was once cleaning $10 million every month. She was doing a lot of this for the big Mexican cartels. The U.S. Treasury said,
Marllory Chacon's drug trafficking activities and her ties to the Mexican drug cartels make her a critical figure in the narcotics trade.
And you know how it is in the South American cartels. To climb to the top, you have to be extra ruthless. For Marllory, there was never an option to lay low. She wanted to get to the very top of the trade. She had all the money laundering skills one could have. But there was one thing she still lacked. To become the boss of a big cartel, you have to have connections, lots of them. So Marllory took her time and built relations all around Guatemala. First, there was Marllory's first drug deal in April 2004. She had promised to move a ton of coke to Colombia through Honduras. It was an $8 million deal, but Marllory's first buyer had pulled out. So she secured a new deal with Eliu Lorenzana, a powerful drug boss and the younger brother of Don Valde. Soon enough, she had a network full of drug bosses and ruthless criminal business people. Then came Las Patronas, a network of female narcos bosses in Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, and El Salvador. These weren't just business-savvy women who laid low and laundered money for their male colleagues. They were vicious.
I mean, I was told she was sending out hits on people. I was told her brothers would kidnap young women, take them up to their mansion, rape them, pass them around the security guards.
And Marllory wasn't an innocent bystander either. She might have used her feminine charms to secure deals with cartel men, but before anything, she intimidated people with the many security guards that always surrounded her. Juan, a former cartel member, recalls,
She was a woman with a big presence and very intimidating because of the kind of people she was surrounded by. She moved with security everywhere. There was always someone at the door.
But Marllory didn't just buy the security guards herself, because by now, she had ties to the top dogs in the Guatemalan government. This is how she earned her nickname, the Queen of the South. Marllory had befriended people with very high functions in the government.
She was part of this web that went right to the top of Guatemala's political as well as criminal elite. She was absolutely right in the eye of the storm.
That's why she felt invincible. She and her business were protected by the government itself.
Marllory was guarded by the National Police. She had 3 or 4 cars with her from the Ministry of the Interior. It was security that was assigned to her.
Marllory was particularly close to Guatemala's Interior Minister, Mauricio Lopez Bonilla. No one knows exactly how close they were, that is to say, if they were involved romantically. They were best buds, or simply tied through lust for money and power. But at one point in 2013, there were reports of Bonilla visiting Marllory at home. He was the one who greenlit Marllory's 24/7 protection as she moved from town to town, securing high-end narcotics deals. The security guards ordered by Bonilla even protected Marllory's many traffickers. He was officially keeping the cartel safe. Marllory was also friends with Roxana Baldetti, Guatemala's vice president. It's easy to see why she felt invincible. She could do anything she liked with official protection from the government. She could launder money, order hits, and secure transactions worth millions of dollars, all while climbing to the top of the Guatemalan cartel. The Queen of the South felt like no one could take her down, but things were about to take a drastic turn. As in the cases of Pablo Escobar and El Chapo, Marllory Chacon didn't limit herself to transporting drugs between Central and South American countries. Huge shipments of white powder would arrive in the US under her command. So by the mid-2010s, the DEA got involved. What would you do if you found out the DEA was on your tail, tracking your movements, and perhaps speaking to your crew?
Marllory was incredibly valuable to the DEA. And when they sanctioned her, she realized that if she wanted to stay out of prison for the rest of her life, she was going to have to cooperate substantially.
That's right. Marllory didn't fight her cartel. In fact, she decided that if she was going down, she was going to take the whole cartel down with her. Marllory didn't even wait to be arrested by the DEA. As soon as they made contact, she flipped. She said she was going to help them take down her entire Guatemalan cartel and indict the corrupt ones at the top. Mauricio López Bonilla and Roxana Baldetti were amongst the first ones arrested by the US authorities.
Los testimonios de Chacón sirvieron para encauzar y condenar a varios acusados de narcotráfico y lavado de dinero, incluidos los empresarios Lorenzana de Guatemala.
Do you remember Eliu Lorenzana? He was the first drug boss Marllory went into business with. This is how ruthless she was. She was giving the DEA every single name she'd ever worked with. Why? On one hand, she wanted to make sure no one would come after her. On the other hand, she wanted to ensure her freedom, as she knew she was facing serious prison time. Roxana Baldetti and Mauricio López Bonilla were both sentenced to prison in Guatemala on corruption charges. When their terms are over, they will most likely be extradited to the US to face charges. This means more prison time for the both of them. Interestingly, Bonilla was once the most important security contact for the United States in Guatemala on security and counter narcotics, so it's pretty shocking that he was protecting Marllory at the same time. What's even more shocking is Marllory's prison sentence. In 2014, she was facing 26 years in prison on several charges including drug trafficking and money laundering. She was supposed to serve this many years in Miami Federal Prison. The next year, she received a reduced sentence of 12 years. And in 2019, Marllory was freed on bail. She was freed after spending less than 5 years in prison. This goes to show just how much ratting on your former allies can reduce your sentence. But don't feel too bad for them. Cartels are usually a dog-eat-dog world. And if you think it's pretty badass for a woman to be an active member of the cartel, guess again. Most of these women are subjected to hard labor and minimal pay.
Nosotros somos pobres, sembramos, vendemos la hojita para mantener nuestro hogar y nuestros hijos educarlos. Dice que va a haber apoyo para dejarla sembrar las cocas. Hasta el día de hoy, ¿qué apoyo? Nada, ningún apoyo para nosotros.
Some women make it to the higher ranks, like paid assassins, but they often die young and a truly gruesome death. Remember La Flaca? She was left dismembered in various boxes around Mexico. She was around 20 years old. And the very few that make it to the top are so violent that it's no longer badass. When you kill and maim to get to the top of the trade, there's nothing empowering about it. There's another twist here. Female narcos often end up more violent than men just to prove themselves in this nasty business.
People who I know who have gotten close to women who've been as powerful as them say that women who are in violent industries, and this does absolutely relate to legal industries too, have to prove themselves more than men. There is a tendency for women to be more violent than men so that the men who are around them will take them seriously.
Women have been seen for so long as wives, girlfriends, or victims of infamous cartel men that many cartel men don't believe women are capable of violence. And this could be seen in the case of Marllory Chacon, too. Apparently, during her Sebastiana Cotton Vasquez trials, the Lorenzana brothers were openly mocking them and interrupting their testimonies. In the end, the two women got their last words by testifying against them and seeing them jailed for life, while they got reduced sentences. After she was freed, Marllory never returned to Guatemala. It's unknown exactly where she lives, but it's safe to say she won't be visiting her home country too soon. After you've testified against pretty much all your former allies, it's probably unsafe to walk those streets. And with her politician friends in jail, it's unlikely she'll ever have official protection again. The Queen of the South's reign seems to have ended. She will have to live a normal, middle-class life now, staying out of trouble and giving zero reasons for the DEA to arrest her again. Now, while some newspapers claim Netflix's Queen of the South is based on Marllory's character, others say it's based on Sandra Avila Beltran. She was once nicknamed the Queen of the Pacific, and she was also a high-ranking cartel boss who ordered huge white powder shipments into the US. So it's hard to say if it was just one or another who inspired the series, or if the directors took inspiration from both female narcos. What's clear is that we live in an age that's finally recognizing the violent and ruthless women of the criminal underworld, and many of them are still out there. Who knows? Maybe even the Queen of the South is somewhere out there making sketchy deals in the shadows. Or perhaps she's just watching the Netflix show bearing her old name, reminiscing about days long gone. Hey, thanks for watching. Remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. See you next time.